Wait a second while I figure out what to do here. Ozzy Osbourne. That was a cool one. That was a cool AI. I've been seeing some cool AIs. That one made me want to cry my eyes out, and that was one with Texas Hill Country um, disaster, and it was Jesus, and he was having a boy and a girl, and picking them up, uh, pulling them through the water. But anyway, people, here we go. What we have here is what? Shalop's layer. Now, if you notice that in the thumbprint, whatever it is, that one has the plans for Shalop's layer. If you notice that or whatever, if you want to go ahead and look on there, and refers to there. But that is also on a post. If you want to go on another phone and just go look on that. But this is this one right here. Sorry people, I cannot make it smaller than for some reason. I can make myself smaller or disappear, but I cannot make that smaller for some reason. Sorry folks. You may refer to the other posting on the wall. We're on YouTube. Well, so anyway, okay, so I'm on page. I'm going to read from 708 to the end of the I think it's 716. But guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to go ahead and disappear. But anyway, okay, so here, while you referring to Shalop's lair, wake up, Mr. Frodo. They're gone, and we better go too. There's something still alive in that place. Something with eyes, or a seeing mind. If you take me, and the longer we stay in one spot, the sooner it will get on to us. Come on, Mr. Frodo. Frodo raised his head and then stood up. Despair had not left him, but the weakness had passed. He even smiled grimly, feeling now as clearly as a moment before he had felt the opposite, that what he had to do, if he could, and that whether Boromir or Aragorn, or Elrond, or Galadriel, or Gandalf, or anyone else ever know about it, was beside the purpose. He took his staff in one hand, and the field in his other. When he saw that the clear light was already whirling through his fingers, he thrust it into his bosom and held it against his heart. Then turning from the city of Morgul, now no more than a gray glimmer across a dark gulf, he prepared to take the upward road. Gollum, it seemed, had crawled off along the ledge into that darkness beyond. When the gates of Minas Morgul opened, leaving the hobbits where they lay, he now came creeping back, his teeth chattering and his fingers snapping. Foolish, silly, he hissed. Make haste. They mustn't think danger has passed. It hasn't. Make haste. They did not answer, but they followed him onto the climbing ledge. It was little to the liking of either of them, not even after facing so many other perils. But it did not last long. Soon the path reached a rounded angle where the mountainside swelled out again, and there it suddenly entered a narrow opening in the rock. They had to come to the first stair that Gollum had spoken of. The darkness was almost complete, and they could see nothing much beyond their hands stretched, but Gollum's eyes shone pale, several feet above, as he turned back towards them. Careful, he whispered. Steps, lots of steps. Must be careful. Care was certainly needed. Frodo and Sam at first felt easier, having now a wall on either side, but the stairway was almost as steep as a ladder, and as they climbed up and up, they became more and more aware of the long black fall behind them, and the steps were narrow, spaced unevenly, and often treacherous, and they were worn and smooth at the edges, and some were broken, and some cracked as foot was set upon them. The hobbits struggled on until at last they were clinging with desperate fingers to the steps ahead and forcing their aching knees to bend and straighten. And ever as the stair cut its way deeper into the sheer mountain, the rocky walls rose higher and higher above their heads. At length, just as they felt that they could endure no more, they saw Gollum's eyes peering down at them again. We're up, he whispered. 4 stairs past. Clever hobbits to climb so high. Very clever hobbits. Just a few more little steps, and that's all. Yes. Dizzy and very tired, Sam and Frodo following him, crawled up the last step and sat down, rubbing their legs and knees. They were in a deep, dark passage that seemed still to go up before them, though at a gentler slope and without steps. Gollum did not let them rest long. There's another stair still, he said. A much longer stair. Rest when we get to the top of the next stair. Not yet. Sam groaned. Longer? Did you say? He asked. Yes, longer, said Gollum, but not so difficult. Hobbits have climbed the straight stair. Next comes the winding stair. And what after that? Said Sam. We shall see, said Gollum softly. Oh, yes, we shall see. I thought you said there was a tunnel, said Sam. Isn't there a tunnel or something to go through? Oh, yes, there's a tunnel, said Gollum. But hobbits can rest before they try that. If they get through that, they'll they'll be nearly at the top, very nearly. If they get through, oh yes. Frodo shivered. The climb had made him sweat, but now he felt cold and clammy, and there was a chill drawn in the dark passage, blowing down from the invisible heights above. He got up and shook himself. Well, let's go on, he said. This is no place to sit in. The passage seemed to go on for miles, and always the chill air flowed over them, rising as they went on to a bitter wind. The mountains seemed to be trying with their deadly breath to daunt them, to turn them back from the secrets of the high places, or to blow them away into the darkness behind. They only knew that they had come to the end, when suddenly they felt no wall at their right hand. They could see very little. Great, black, shapeless masses and deep gray shadows loomed above them and about them, but now and again a dull red light flickered up under the lowering clouds, and for a moment they were aware of tall peaks in front and on either side, like pillars holding up a vast sagging roof. They seemed to have climbed up many hundreds of feet onto a wide shelf. A cliff was on their left and a chasm on their right. Gollum led the way close under the cliff. For the present, they were no longer climbing, but the ground was now more broken and dangerous in the dark, and there were blocks and lumps of fallen stone in the way. Their going was slow and cautious. How many hours had passed since they had entered the immortal vale? Neither Sam nor Frodo could any longer guess. The night seemed endless. At length they were once more aware of a wall looming up. Once more a stairway opened before them. Again they halted, and again they began to climb. It was a long and weary ascent, but the stairway did not delve into the mountainside. Here the cliff face sloped backwards, and the path, like a snake, wound to and fro across it. At one point, it crawled sideways to the edge of the dark chasm, and Frodo, glancing down, saw below him as a vast, deep pit, the great ravine at the head of the Marble Valley. Down in its depths glimmered like a glowworm thread the Wrath Road from the dead city to the nameless pass. He turned hastily away. Still on and up the stairway bent and crawled, until at last, with a final flight, short and straight, it climbed down again onto another level. The path had veered away from the main pass and the great ravine, and it now followed its own perilous course at the bottom. Still on and up the stairway bent and crawled, until at last, with a final flight, short and straight, it climbed out again onto another level. The path had veered away from the main path, and the great ravine, and it now followed its own perilous course at the bottom of a lesser cleft. Among the higher regions of the Eiffel de Wall, dimly the hobbits could discern tall piers and jagged pinnacles of stone on either side, between which were great crevices and fissures blacker than the night, where forgotten winters had gnawed and carved the sunless stone. And now the red light in the sky seemed stronger, though they could not tell whether a dreadful morning were indeed coming to this place of shadow, or whether they saw only the flame of some great violence of Sauron and the torment of Golgoroth beyond. Still, far ahead, and still high above, Frodo, looking up, saw, as he guessed, the very crown of this better road. Against the sullen redness of the eastern sky, a cleft was outlined in the topmost ridge, narrow, deep cloven between two black shoulders, and on either shoulder was a horn of stone. He paused and looked more attentively. The horn upon the left was tall and slender, and in it burned a red light, or else the red light in the land beyond was shining through a pole. He saw now it was a black tower, poised above the outer pass. He touched Sam's arm and pointed. I don't like the look of that, said Sam. So this secret way of yours is guarded after all. He growled, turning to Gollum. As you knew all along, I suppose. Always are watched. Yes, said Gollum. Of course they are. But hobbits must try some way. This may be least watched. Perhaps they've all gone away to big battle. Perhaps, grunted Sam. Well, it still seems a long way off, and a long way up before we get there. And there's still the tunnel. I think you ought to rest now, Mr. Frodo. I don't know what time of day or night it is, but we kept going for hours. And hours. Yes, we must rest, said Frodo. Let us find some corner of the wind, out of the wind, and gather our strength for the last lap. For so he felt it to be. The terrors of the land beyond, and the deed to be done there, seemed remote. Too far off yet to trouble him. All his mind was bent on getting through or over this impenetrable wall and guard. If once he could do that impossible thing, then somehow the errand would be accomplished, or so it seemed to him that in that dark hour of weariness, still laboring in the stony shadows under Source anew. In a dark crevice between two great piers of rock, they sat down. Frodo and Sam, a little way within, and Gollum crouched upon the ground near the opening. There, the hobbits took what they expected would be their last meal before they went down into the nameless land. Maybe the last meal they would ever eat together. Some of the food of Gondor they ate, and wafers of the bread of the elves, and they drank a little. But of their water they were sparing, and took only enough to moisten their dry mouths. I wonder when we'll find water again, said Sam. But I suppose even over there they drink. Orcs drink, don't they? Yes, they drink, said Frodo, but do not let us speak of that. Such drink is not for us. Then all the more need to fill our bottles, said Sam. But there isn't any water up here. Not a sound or a trickle have I heard. And anyway, Faramir said we were not to drink any water in Mordor. No water flowing out of inlet Mordor were his words, said Frodo. We are not in that valley now. And if we came on a spring, it would be flowing into it and not out of it. I wouldn't trust it, said Sam. Not till I was dying of thirst. There's a wicked feeling about this place, he sniffed, and a smell, I fancy. Do you notice it? A queer kind of a smell. Stuffy. I don't like it. I don't like anything here at all, said Frodo. Step or stone, breath or bone, earth, air, and water all seem accursed, but so our path is laid. Yes, that's so, said Sam, and we shouldn't be here at all if we know more about it before we started. But I suppose it's often that way. The brave things in the old tales and songs, Mr. Frodo, adventures as I used to call them. I used to think that they were things the wonderful folk of the stories went out and looked for, because they wanted them, because they were exciting, and life was a bit dull, and a kind of a sport, as you might say. But that's not the way of it. But the tales that really matter are the ones that stay in the mind. Folks seem to have been just landed in them. Unusually, their paths were laid that way, as you put it. But I expect they have lots of chances like us of turning back. Only they didn't. And if they had, we shouldn't know. Because they had been forgotten. We hear about those as just went on and not all to a good end. Mind you, at least not to what folk inside a story and not outside. They call a good end, you know, coming home and finding things all right, though not quite the same, like old Mr. Bilbo. But those aren't always the best tales to hear, though they may be the best tales to get landed in. I wonder what sort of a tale we've fallen into. I wonder, said Frodo, but I don't know, and that's the way of it, of a real tale. Take anyone that you're fond of. You may know our guess, and what kind of a tale it is, happy ending or sad ending, but the people in it don't know, and you don't want them to. No, sir, of course not. Very no. He never thought he was going to get that Cimmeral from the Iron Crown in Thorn, and yet he did, and that was a worse place and a blacker danger than ours. But that's a long tail course, and goes on to past the happiness and into the grief and beyond it. And the Cimmeral went on and came to Eredale. And why, sir, I never thought of that before. You got some of the light of it in that star glass that the lady gave you. Why, to think of it, we're in the same tale still. It's going on. Don't the great tales never end? No, they never end as tales, said Frodo. But the people in them come and go when their part's ended. Our part will end later, or sooner. And then we can have a rest and some sleep, said Sam. He laughed grimly. And I mean just that, Mr. Frodo. I mean plain, ordinary rest and sleep and waking up to a morning's work in the garden. I'm afraid that's all I'm hoping for all the time. All the big, important plans, and not for my sort. Still, I wonder if we shall ever be put into songs and tales. We're in one, of course, but I mean, put into words. You know, told by the fireside or read out of a great big book with red and black letters, years and years afterwards. And people will say, let's hear about Frodo and the Ring. And they'll say, yes, that's one of my favorite stories. Frodo was very brave, wasn't he, Dad? Yes, my boy, the famousest of the hobbits. And that's saying a lot. It's saying a lot too much, said Frodo. And he laughed, a long, clear laugh from his heart. Such a sound had not been heard in those places since Sauron came to Middle-earth. To Sam, suddenly it seemed as if all the stones were listening and the tall rocks leaning over them. All the stones were, yeah. But Frodo did not heed them. He laughed again. Why, Sam, he said, to hear you somehow makes me as merry as if the story was already written. But you've left out one of the chief characters, Samwise the Stout-Hearted. I want to hear more about Sam, Dad. Why didn't they put in more of his talk, Dad? That's what I like. It makes me laugh. And Frodo wouldn't have gone far without Sam, would he, Dad? Now, Mr. Frodo, said Sam, you shouldn't make fun. I was serious. So was I, said Frodo. And so I am. We're going on a bit too fast. You and I, Sam, are still stuck in the worst places of the story. And it is all too likely that some will say at this point, Shut the book now, Dad. We don't want to read any more. Maybe, said Sam, but I wouldn't be one to say that. Things done and over and made into the part of the great tales are different. Why even Gollum might be good in a tale better than he is to have by you. Anyway, and he used to like tales himself once, by his own account. I wonder if he thinks he's the hero or the villain. Gollum, he called. Would you like to be the hero? Now, where's he's got to again? There was no sign of him at the mouth of the shelter nor in the shadows near. He had refused their food, though he had, as usual, except for a mouthful of water. And then he seemed to curl up or asleep. They had supposed that one, at any rate, of his objects in his long absence, the day before had been to hunt for food to his own liking, and now he had evidently slipped off again while he talked. But what for this time? I don't like this his sneaking off without saying, said Sam. And least of all now. He can't be looking for food up here, not unless there's some kind of rock he fancies. Why, there isn't even a bit of moss. It's no good worrying about him now, said Frodo. We couldn't have got so far, not even with this. I'm going to have to stop now, and I'm going to take a break. Okay, later.